All right, it's turned out to be an interesting day. People could describe this budget as ambitious because it relies on growth targets to meet its fiscal deficit targets, and those growth targets may not deliver, in a sense, moving the finance minister off his target for fiscal deficits. Others might describe this budget as unambitious because it has no great strategy to help revive animal spirits or bring growth back into the economy. That seems to be the key takeaway from this budget. But for that power-packed panel that Shireen promised you, I'm now going to take it across to her. Shireen?
Thanks very much, Minka. I'll see you in just a bit back on this show, but let's go across now. Joining us, N.R. Narayanamurthy from Bangalore, Chanda Kochar from Mumbai, Nainalal Kidwai from Delhi, Adi Godrej and Arvind Virmani with me here in our Delhi studio, and Harish Salve joining us in Delhi as well. Mr. Godrej, I've spent time with you through the day today now, and you've had time to digest the fine print. At the end of the day, has this emerged as a do-no-harm budget, but not as a game-changing budget, which is what perhaps was required? Or do you think at this point in time, we really needed a do-no-harm, sort of less flashy, more practical, realistic budget?
It's certainly not a game-changing budget. In this sort of an economic environment, I think that was too much to expect. But I think there are very many good points about this budget, about the budget proposals. One is, he has paid a lot of attention to fiscal consolidation. Even this year is going to be 5.2% of GDP deficit. Next year, 4.8. I think that's achievement. I think we should recognize that, because that was necessary for any other improvements in the economy. If we want GDP growth, if we want to contain inflation, if we want interest rates down, it was very important that fiscal consolidation was done, which he has been able to, and I think he will adhere to that. I think the expenditure plans are growth oriented. I think they are in a direction which will help the economy. I think they're also inclusiveness oriented, which will be good, not just politically, but also economically, in my mind. So I think these proposals are good. What I am concerned about is the perception that has been created in terms of investments from places like Mauritius or Singapore.
Yeah.
I think it's not very clear yet exactly what it means, but clearly investors have not taken that well, and that is always bad for the economy.
Absolutely. This is a throwback to what we saw happen last year when the retrospective amendment to Section 9 was announced. We saw the markets reacting to that. Finance Ministry officials speaking here on CNBC TV 18 clarifying that if there is need for a clarification, one will be seen coming in perhaps as early as tomorrow. But let me go across to Mr. Murthy. Mr. Murthy, the Finance Minister invoking Azim Premji's spirit and saying that those with incomes of over 1 crore rupees should help out the economy in times of distress, and hence I'm imposing that tax or the surcharge of 10% on what is now being called the super rich. So in that sense, do you understand why he decided to do that? And we believe that of the 13,300 crore rupees that he hopes to mop up from direct tax collections, the lion's share is actually going to come in from that surcharge.
Well, I am quite happy about this surcharge, because at the end of the day, in a country like India, where there is so much of poverty, people earning 1 crore shouldn't crib about paying a 10% surcharge. Therefore, I welcome it. I think we should all pay reasonable taxes in this country. We don't pay any tax on our dividend, capital gains, the long-term capital gains tax is zero. So I think if you consider all those things, this is peanuts.
Okay, this may be peanuts, but on the whole, Mr. Murthy, how would you assess this budget? Because as I was just talking with Mr. Godrej, the expectations were already very low. The hope was that he shouldn't go the populist way, that it shouldn't actually turn into an election budget. Gratefully, it wasn't one. But do you believe that in terms of pressing the right levers to jumpstart growth, to get the investment cycle kicking again, this budget falls short of that?
Well, as Adi pointed out, I think the finance minister has done a good job of containing the fiscal deficit at 5.2%, and his target of 4.8% is laudable. The fact that he has allocated increased funds to healthcare, education, food security, then microfinance, and housing, all for the urban, urban and rural poor and middle class. I think this is a good idea. There is no doubt about it. However, on the side of enhancing the revenue, on the issue of creating more and more jobs, I only wish he had taken a few steps. For example, the whole transfer pricing issue in my industry is still pending. The issue of transferring people from STP to SEZ has been pending for the last 3 or 4 years. There are several such issues which have been impeding our industry. Therefore, I only wish we get a quick resolution of those issues so that the growth can be accelerated and more revenues earned, more taxes paid, and more jobs created.
Okay, Harish Salve, let me come to you on the point that both Mr. Godrej and Mr. Murthy just brought up. One is on the issue of transfer pricing. The other is on this clarification that we hope to get from the finance minister on this business of beneficial ownership and the amendment to section 90A and whether the circular 789 actually stands. The finance ministry says that the circular 789 stands. Even on transfer pricing, for instance, when that question was put to the finance minister, he said, you know, it's very convenient for you to only look at one side of the story and not believe the government's argument, and that we're well within our rights to guard against the distribution of profits across jurisdictions. Do you believe that what we've seen happen today on section 90A as well as the transfer pricing issue not being resolved is actually a red herring of this budget?
See, let me tell you very candidly, the budget is realistic because the finance minister has identified the problems, but it's to me, if you look at the big picture, it's a hopeless admission that the government's, and I'm not blaming any political party, that today's India's politics is possibly such that we cannot find solutions within the politics of India. And let me say why. The single biggest problem which the finance minister identified is unless we have growth, we cannot contain the fiscal deficit. There is only that much you can cut back on social expenditure. Let's focus on that for a minute. The only way you can get growth, the finance minister says, and our CAD is 75 billion. With a $75 billion CAD, current account deficit, the finance minister says, I need investment. Having spoken of saying I need investment, why are we not honest to admit that investment will not come because of the terrible atmosphere we have created in the last year? And how do you show the olive branch to investors saying, all right, that's the matter of the past, by bringing in 90A, by creating this kind of obfuscation on what transfer pricing is going to be, with Shell looming large and with Vodafone still lurking around? You think any investor will have confidence? And the board taking an ambivalent position, our circular is there, not there, finance minister saying, why don't you believe our side of the story?
Okay.
This is about confidence building. And there is far from there being confidence building. The kind of comments about Mauritius, about Singapore, these are confidence shaking suggestions. How are we going to get the 19% growth in tax? Is this a pipe dream? Where are you going to get the 558 billion for disinvestment? Where are you going to get 400 billion for telecom revenues?
Hold that thought, Harish Salve.
This is not so. Your fiscal deficit will go haywire.
Hold that thought. Okay, hold that thought. I'm going to come back to you. Let me go across to Chanda Kochar. Chanda Kochar, you just heard what Harish Salve had to say, and similar sentiments being echoed on the panel from Mr. Godrej and Mr. Murthy, that if you actually wanted to inspire confidence, you started your speech by saying, I want to welcome FDI, I want to welcome FII. There is no question of us putting out anything less than a red carpet as far as foreign investors are concerned. And then you go and do something like this, which causes uncertainty and confusion. Do you feel foreign investors today once again feel uncertain about investing in India on the back of what they've heard?
Well, I think as far as this tax clarity or lack of clarity is concerned, I certainly think we need much more clarity on that, and I think that should emerge by tomorrow. But, you know, on the whole question of bringing back confidence, I must say that the budget has addressed two very important issues that are important for bringing back confidence in the economy. One important issue is fiscal consolidation. And the second important issue is really incentivizing investments and bringing back investments. So, you know, if you talk of fiscal consolidation, that was the biggest priority for the country today. And the fact that he's been able to contain fiscal deficit to 5.2 for this year and has a target to 4.8, I think it's extremely laudable and something that will inspire a lot of confidence amongst the investing community, amongst the credit rating agencies and so on.
But Chanda, I want to come in on the question of 4.8 because that is the number that he's promised to deliver on. If you take a look at the way that they've actually accounted for subsidies, oil subsidies at 65,000 crore rupees versus the RE of 96,000 crore rupees. Fertilizer subsidies, they've actually not seen any increase over the RE. Food subsidy barely at 90,000 crore rupees. And he very clearly said that if we need to revisit and revise that number, once I actually have the food bill, I will be able to. So once again, there is a question mark on whether that 4.8% will actually be delivered on.
Yes, especially as far as the food bill is concerned, there is currently a question mark in the minds of the people what exactly the number would be, especially if the bill is passed. But I think I give a lot of credit to the fact that, you know, a few months ago, had we thought of the number of 5.3 for this current year, and we were all thinking that it is unbelievable and undoable. But from there on, we've reached the month of February and we believe that this year's fiscal deficit is going to be 5.2. So I derive a lot of confidence from actually seeing results for this year. And therefore, I think, you know, the path that has been laid out for 4.8, yes, it has certain, you know, very broad assumptions, certain assumptions that we will have to make sure that as the year goes by, you know, those revenues come, those disinvestments take place. But indeed, I think there is clearly an intent to get to 4.8 and there is a lot of focus there. But I think to your bigger point again on bringing back confidence, you know, apart from fiscal consolidation, the other big point is actually restarting investments. And there is a whole lot of focus on the budget about making sure that investments get restarted. And I think that's the other positive point about the budget.
All right, Nenal Kidwai, let's pick up on the point that Chanda just made about restarting the investment cycle. And, you know, there has been the investment allowance has been brought back after several years. There have been more measures that have been announced, especially as far as the infrastructure is concerned, sector is concerned, something on housing. But is it really enough to generate confidence to actually get the investment cycle kicking again?